Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to this next webinar in our series. This one's all about choosing a good investment for you. As always, the recording will be put up on the YouTube channel within the next week. Now, we are a little bit behind on episodes in this series, so I fall a little bit behind. So we are in the background working on clearing that backlog. But I did want to hop straight into this one because I think a lot of our work as financial advisors is around helping people individualize the way that they approach their financial position and their investments. And a lot of that involves having some really big discussions before we even get to the point of buying the investments. As an advisor, quite often people come to me with a preconceived idea of what they're going to do. I want to buy this property, I want to make this investment, I want to do this, I want to do that. And that's fine, like not an issue. We can help them do that if that's the case. But what I always do, and I feel is part of the reason you see an advisor, is we take a few steps back. And we're going to talk a little bit today about what those backward steps look like, because we ask quite a few big questions, I think, to try to make sure that the investment that people are heading towards is indeed exactly in line with what they're looking to do. So, enough preamble, let's hop into it. Let me share the slides. There we go. So, as always, we start with our disclaimers. This is being recorded. It will be being put up on the YouTube channel. We won't talk about specifics today, but any general advice that does come up, be sure to get financial advice yourself before making any decisions based upon the information we cover in this discussion. Okay. So what we're really talking about today is investing for yourself, not investing in yourself, though that is very important and it's a big part of personal development. We're talking about investing for yourself, which is the method and the manner of making sure that all of your investments and really all of your financial arrangements are aligned towards your ultimate destination. What are you heading towards? So there's a few different variables we're going to explore in that. Firstly, what are you actually investing for? It sounds like a really simple question, but you'd be surprised how many people kind of invest almost by default. And because they're doing it by default, that momentum just sort of carries them into investments that perhaps aren't really appropriate for them. I'm not going to sit here and say there's a good investment or a bad investment. There's no such thing. Investments are just what they are. It's really all about defining what's appropriate for people. And that is all linked and aligned with what they're actually looking to do. Which brings us back to what are you actually investing for? So are you investing to get towards that point of financial freedom where you don't have to work anymore? Are you investing to provide you and your family financial security? Is it to grow your overall position of wealth? Is it for kicks and giggles? Like, is it just to have a bit of fun, kind of punt along and see how things go? Is it for really cool stories and thrills? Is it because you want to be the person that buys Bitcoin at $1 and now it's worth, I don't know, 90 grand or something? Is that what you're looking for out of your investment portfolio? None of these are invalid. These are all very valid approaches to making investment decisions. Where people come into trouble, though, is when the decisions they're making are not reflecting what they're actually looking to do. So if you're somebody who's looking for cool stories and thrills, but you invest in a portfolio of term deposits and blue chip shares, I would argue that's more of a financial security approach rather than a cool stories and thrills approach. Doesn't make it wrong. It just means that you'll spend a lot of your time with a bit of a misalignment, a bit of a dissonance between what you're looking to do and what you're actually doing. And that's where you can just people can sometimes overreact in that case and make a riskier decision than they might otherwise to try to get that thrill. Because what we're also talking about here is what do you want your money to do? Because investing money is depriving today you to help future you. I mean, ultimately, that's all investing is. So the question that I think people need to really consider and be very conscious of before they start that is why are you doing it? What is the driving force behind making this decision? What do you want this investment to do for you? Are you looking for it to achieve spectacular growth? The Bitcoin story. Do you want it to do it as a matter of personal achievement? Are you driven by the idea of having $1 million put aside by the time you're 50? Are you doing it to provide your family with a greater level of security than perhaps you had growing up? Or is it, if we're being completely honest, are you doing it because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses? My brother-in-law has bought an investment property. He says it's great, therefore I'm buying an investment property. Is it, my neighbor has told me what a fantastic investment option buying ABC share is. So do you then go and buy ABC shares to keep up? So you can see we're developing those different nuances. And when those nuances are not in alignment, you have quite a bit of difficulty. So it all boils down to, what do you want out of your investments? Because ultimately, as I said earlier, there's no such thing as a good or bad investment. There's no such thing as an investment that's good for everybody. Each investment has its own characteristics. So what those characteristics all boil down to is that depending on what you're looking for, depending on what you're looking for your money to do for you, those characteristics may be a good thing or a bad thing. So the same investment could be very, very bad for some people, but very, very good for others. So investment properties could be an option here. So somebody buying an investment property who has a long-term time horizon, who has the ability to cover the ongoing costs involved, who has the administration organization brain to handle the admin that comes with owning a property, it's a fantastic option for them. It's great. But if you're somebody who's looking for easy access to cash, who's looking for a low drama investment, who's looking for a low cost investment, investment property is probably not a good fit, particularly in Victoria, the way they're going. So what are some of the characteristics? And there are heaps. And it's really easy when you're going through an investment process to latch onto the really positive thing that you want. And that tends to kind of drown out the negative things we're trying to avoid. But the big four that we see a lot and that drive a lot of our investment choices are risk and return, diversification, income and growth, and the liquidity of the investment itself. And again, all of these are ultimately neutral. So none of these make for a bad investment. What they can do is make for a bad investment for you. So we'll explore that now. So risk and return, as we've talked about before, there is an unbreakable connection between the two. Higher risk equals higher return. Higher return means higher risk. There's no such thing as a low risk, high return investment. Maybe education, like actually getting like further education, maybe, perhaps. So the risk and return aspect is, if you are somebody who is looking for higher thrilling returns, then you should be taking a higher risk approach with your portfolio. Income and growth is another perspective, another set of characteristics. So income obviously is the money that comes out of an investment on a regular basis, whereas growth is the increase in value of the underlying investment on a period of time. Now, again, if you're somebody who is looking, so say you're a retiree and you need the income to live, investing in an income-based investment makes a lot of sense. High yielding shares, paying good franking credits, fantastic option. If you're a 42-year-old person making $250,000 a year, paying the top tax bracket, an investment that's churning out income isn't actually going to help you very much, because you're losing 45% of every dollar you get paid into the tax. So in that case, normally our advice would be to focus on growth-oriented investments. So you let them grow over time until you get to a window where you're not going to pay as much tax, then you can liquidate that position. So that can be a really good way to go about it. But again, if you're 42 and earning 250 grand a year, term deposits are probably not a great fit for you. If you're 72 and you need that money to pay you, then an investment property negatively geared is probably not a good option for you. So it's all about making sure that the pieces fit. Another piece to consider is how easy it is to convert an investment into ready cash. So again, our retiree, they're going to need access to cash. Maybe they need to buy a new car, maybe they need to travel or want to travel, anything like that. So if they had all of their money tied up into one investment property, that's really difficult to do. So in that case, the liquidity characteristic of the investment property is probably not a good thing. However, if you're starting out, you're on a high enough income, and you're looking to grow wealth, and you're not looking to generate cash, and you won't need cash along the way, an investment property could be a fantastic option. It doesn't need to be liquid in that case. It just needs to grow and achieve the other characteristics. Sort of had an image in my mind pop in of like a switchboard with on-off toggles. You need to make sure that your switchboard fits your needs and your investment fits your switchboard, because you are ultimately an individual, and your investment portfolio, your financial approach should reflect that. Now, that doesn't mean that every investment portfolio should be entirely bespoke. That is a big thing in financial advice. It's something I don't really think adds a lot of value. I think there are arguments for standardization. But your portfolio and your overall financial position should reflect your individual requirements and needs. Because what we're talking about here is walking your own path, and that can be very difficult to do. So these 3 steps are kind of the 3 that I recommend people follow when they are looking to walk their own path. The first one is to set your own destination. And we're talking then about using a strategy, not tactics. And I've talked about that at length in the past. Strategy is, how do you get to where you want to go? Tactics are what are the steps you take to implement that strategy. So an example I'm pretty sure I've used before is you're driving from point A to B, and on point A to B, you have to take the freeway. So I don't know if it's the road rules, but when I was sort of learning to drive, the 3-lane freeway has different characteristics. So the outside lane is for slower drivers who don't want to drive at full speed. The middle lane is for people that are happy just doing the speed limit. The inside lane is for people that are comfortable speeding or driving a bit faster than is safe. Now, each of those lanes, the characteristics there are the approach to speed. In doing that, in choosing your lane in that case, you are accepting that either you will be driving faster at a higher risk of getting caught with a penalty or having a crash and the crash being worse. Or you're in the outside lane where you're accepting, okay, well, I'm going to be slower, it's going to be more gradual, but it's safer, and I'm more comfortable with that. So that's fine, but that's a strategic decision that you need to make. The tactical decision is which car are you going to drive? What kind of car are you going to buy? So working through that process and being really deliberate and really intentional about all of that is where really clever investors come to the fore. But underpinning all of that is you need to define your destination. Where are you actually driving to? If you're driving to retirement in 30 years, does it have to be hell for leather inside lane speeding? Whereas if you're driving to save a house deposit in the next 2 years, maybe something needs to be done that is a bit more aggressive. Not investing, but savings wise. So there's all these considerations that come into play because it is all about setting your own destination. Because what do you want your life to look like in the future? What do you need your money to do to help support that idea of what your future could look like? And none of us can tell the future. It may not play out the way we want it to, but having a destination will give shape and direction to the way that you're going to work and the way you're going to drive ultimately. One thing that people don't think about very much, and this is something I would encourage anybody watching this to think about, is what will you actually do when you get to your destination? Achieving what you're looking to do can be wonderful, but ultimately short-lived if you're not willing to celebrate and accept that victory. Another consideration, and this is where things like insurance and downside protection and all that really boring stuff people like me talk about come in, is what could go wrong? What could blow up that destination? Being brave is another factor that comes with walking your own path because there are lots of opinions out there. Ultimately, this webinar is one guy's opinion. It's based on certain understandings and knowledge and experience, but it is ultimately my opinion. So a big part of being a successful investor is choosing which opinions are going to matter to you. So I have some people in my life that are very, very risk averse. I love them very much. But ultimately, I had to decide to not listen to their thoughts around my own personal investment decisions and business decisions and commercial decisions because their risk aversion was making their opinion ultimately ineffective, not very valuable for me, and not very useful. So choosing which opinions you're going to listen to is a very critical but undervalued skill in investing. Ultimately, your journey will have very different hills and valleys than the people you know. Your hills may be higher, they may be steeper. Your valleys may be lower, they may be deeper. Talking like Dr. Seuss. And also other people's, you don't know what their journey's looking like. So all you can really do is walk your own journey. And that does require a level of bravery because like I said earlier, a lot of people invest by default. A lot of people invest to keep up with the Joneses. That can be fine, but if the Joneses' life and characteristics and needs and destination is completely different to yours, it's not going to work. And the final point, particularly in Australia, is financial confidence, financial success is not generally very well received or appreciated. So it does require an element of bravery to achieve these things and to live that life in the vein of the old tall poppy syndrome. The final step to take as you're walking your own path is to celebrate. That's all there is to it. Celebrate the wins, celebrate the losses. Life is very short. We have very few big wins in our life, if you think relative to the number of days we have. We have things that we work hard towards and we have things that we achieve. And if you're not celebrating them along the way, you're missing out, I think, on quite a few good things. So be sure to celebrate as much as you can. My son's currently obsessed with this would you rather concept. So I thought we'd use that to explore a few of the different concepts that we're looking at. So I'm going to ask a few dilemmas. The first one is the only one where I have a pretty fixed opinion on this. The other ones are very fluid, very liquid, very depending on your circumstances. So would you rather, with your investing journey, Would you rather start now with an investment that should be good, should be okay, or would you rather wait for the perfect investment to come along and then you can jump on it? Now, when I say this has a fixed perspective, it's because I strongly believe the first option is your best bet. I've met many people who have been waiting for the perfect investment, or they have been waiting for the perfect time, or they've been waiting until they knew more. Then I've met people who just started. They were 21, they started putting some money away, and they kept that habit up for the rest of their life. One of them ends up to be a very successful investor. The other one ends up being filled with regret and some distaste at their own procrastination. So that's what I would say. Start now. But would you rather, these ones are a bit more balanced. Would you rather an investment that's going to pay you a 5% dividend each year, so 5% income each year, or would you rather an investment that grows by 5% each year? And again, these are neutral characteristics. Neither of these is actually better than the other in a, what's the word? Non-conditional perspective. Where this matters is, what are you looking to do with your investments? Are you somebody that is looking for a higher level of income? In which case, the first option is going to be the best fit. Are you our 42-year-old $250,000 a year earning friend? In which case, I would be looking at an investment that's going to grow, being more valuable than one that's paying them an extra dividend. It's horses for courses. Risk. Would you rather an investment that could go up by 10%, but it could also go down by 10% as well? Or would you prefer, or rather, an investment that can only go up by 5%, but can only drop by 5%? So a much smaller band of returns. You'll see here that chasing a higher level of return does come with a higher level of downside risk. And if you're willing to accept that, and you can do that, and those characteristics align with what you're looking to do, that might be a really good option for you. But if they don't, if you're somebody who is looking to invest for security, liquidity, safety, low risk, that first option would be awful for you. It's going to keep you up at night. An element of that I should flag, we're talking about choosing investments that are more comfortably aligned with what you're looking to do. Where there can be a bit of a challenge for us as advisors, just for people to realize, your level of comfort and security and characteristic requirements will often mean that you are likely to generate a return of X. One of the consequences people then often need to deal with is that their lifestyle expectations or aspirations may require a return of Y, or 2X, or 3X. And so a big part of our conversation then is, how do you reconcile that? Do you step outside your comfort zone with your investments to pursue that higher level of lifestyle return? Or do you accept that you're not going to achieve everything you want financially, but you'd rather prioritize the comfort you have with your investment process? It's a very, very big discussion and very hard. The idea of trade-offs, I think, is very alien to a lot of people. Liquidity. Would you rather lock your money away for 5 years, but you'd earn 7% a year? Or would you rather be able to access your money 24/7, but only earn 3% a year? So again, nothing good or bad about this. It's just got to be appropriate for what you're looking to do. If you are somebody who will need a lump sum of money, all of your money, sometime in the next 2 years, even 1 year, buying an investment property is not going to be a very good option. They're not very liquid. You have to sell them. You have to incur costs to sell them and time. However, they do return a higher rate of return traditionally than a term deposit or a cash account. So you need to prioritize, or which one are you prioritizing, returns or liquidity? It's fun, isn't it? Avoidance. So this is where choosing bad investments or good investments, how you'd feel about it. Say you buy 5 shares tomorrow, equal amounts in each of them. One of them goes bad and runs down to zero. Company goes broke. 3 of them go fine. You make about 5%. One of them shoots the absolute lights out. So absolutely balloons. Your overall return across the portfolio, taking into account the one that went broke, the 3 that went okay, and the one that went amazingly, is 7%. So in that scenario, you're accepting the possibility that one of them will go to zero and the feelings that go with that. Or would you rather buy 5 shares and have none of them go bad, have 5 of them tick along okay, and have none of them really shoot the lights out? So your overall return in that case is 5%. So again, which one would you prefer? Are you happy with a higher return with a higher risk? Or would you prefer something that is going to be a bit stodgier and give you a lot more security around where you're heading? So the final point I'd like to leave you with today, like I said, it has been a shorter webinar today. Um, Often it's the investments you don't make that can define how successful you are as an investor. So the reason I'm saying that is I think there is a lot of value in saying no to a lot of investment things that come along. Be picky, but don't be so picky that 20 years has passed and you haven't done anything. Be picky, but once you've made the decision, and once that decision is based in the context of your overall destination, your preferences, your priorities, your characteristics, what you're looking to do, then go for it. Hop straight in. If the investment you're looking at ticks all the boxes that you're looking to achieve, then go for it. Because ultimately, sitting on the sidelines is no way to end up making any money. Um, the other reason I flag that is I record these with the idea that you're never going to see an advisor. Um, if you do, wonderful. My contact details will be on the next page. But I want to help equip people and empower people to make really good financial decisions when they're not seeing an advisor. And that requires a level of skepticism. It requires a level of individuality, and it requires a willingness to ensure that your approach to finances are aligned with what you're looking to do. Hopefully, that's what we've covered in today's session. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for attending. The recording will go up in the next week or so. There's my contact details. If you do have any questions at all, please get in touch. As flagged previously, clients of the Advice Gallery are not currently paying advice fees, so they're receiving our advice at no charge. So it's a good opportunity to step in and try to see if there's any value in having your arrangements reviewed by an external advisor. And